as just a little bit of context to the folks on the phone, I apologize if we could go back for a moment. Just as context to the folks on the phone, the city of Detroit estimates that there are about 80,000 rental properties in the city, of which approximately 70,000 we currently believe lack a rental inspection and certificate of compliance. So there is a very large market and a very large number of properties that would be inspected through this new system. Thank you. Next slide, please. So I won't go through this line by line, but just to reiterate and kind of emphasize a few of the overarching goals that we're trying to achieve here. First and foremost is promoting housing safety by getting more properties into the rental inspection system and making sure that they meet really core habitability standards. So we're going to standardize our inspections around a 15-point checklist that covers the most common and serious health and safety issues that we see in Detroit homes. We are looking to provide greater transparency for property owners. So we're going to be very public and transparent about what is on that 15-point checklist, exactly what properties need to do in order to pass their inspection. There shouldn't be any surprise to this process. All of the information is going to be out there in the open. A few other goals that we have here are improving efficiency, so having a more streamlined and effective inspection process, engaging the community, strengthening our communication to both landlords and tenants. And then finally, last and certainly not least, is increasing certificates of compliance. So the outcome of all of those steps, making the system more transparent, more efficient, right-sizing what our inspection checklist consists of, the outcome of all of those efforts should be getting more properties into compliance with the city's rental housing standards. Next slide, please. So let's dive into what the new Detroit rental inspection requirements are. I know that a lot of folks on the phone may be familiar with our current system. So I want to emphasize up top that this new system is entirely different. It is a revamp of the system. So please throw out your preconceptions about what rental inspections in Detroit consist of and look to this new system as what we'll be implementing going forward. So under the new system, each property will complete a single home inspection, and that single home inspection will cover both the home condition and lead safety elements. So every property inspection will use the same 15-point home inspection checklist, as I mentioned. That's a standardized inspection form that's going to be used across all of your firms and all of your properties. It provides not only a checklist, but a data dictionary that provides very clear, specific standards for each of those 15 points. So again, there shouldn't be any surprises here. It should be very well known and objective what is on this inspection checklist and whether a property has passed or failed. And then the checklist, the inspection form, and the data dictionary will all be provided in advance to property owners so that they can well prepare. This full checklist, data dictionary, all of the supporting documents are included as attachments to the RFQ. So you should be able to see in Oracle as you are preparing your bid exactly what inspection checklist you would be using. And again, the 15 points cover both home condition. So that's things like, is the home in an overall habitable condition? The electrical system, the plumbing system, are the walls structurally intact? We'll go through that more in a moment, but that's kind of what we mean when we talk about home condition. And then lead safety points to one specific component on that 15-point checklist that looks at, are there potentially conditions in the home that may indicate a lead hazard? So what that lead safety requirement consists of is differentiated by zip code in Detroit. So in 75% of the zip codes, the lead safety requirement will be a visual assessment looking for chipping and peeling paint. In the remaining 25% of the zip codes, which we will designate as high-risk zip codes, the lead safety component will include a visual assessment for chipping and peeling paint, as well as dust sampling. So the idea here is in the majority of zip codes, 75%, we're just doing a visual assessment. In higher risk zip codes, where we have some indication that there is a greater risk for lead poisoning, we're going to do both that visual assessment and sampling of dust to have a more intensive inspection in the zip codes where we most expect there to be lead risks. Some homes where we know that there aren't lead risks will be exempt from the lead safety requirement, so they will not have either a visual nor dust sampling. And those are homes constructed after 1978, homes where a previous lead inspection has indicated there's no lead in the home, and homes where lead was abated by permanent removal. So we'll go through this all in more detail in a moment, but that is an overview of the inspections that will occur in each property moving forward. On the next slide, this is a slightly summarized version of what's on the 15-point inspection checklist. So again, I won't kind of go point by point and belabor it. You can read this in the attachments to the RFQ, but just to give you a very brief overview so you have some sense of what you would be looking for. First and foremost, the walls and the floors are structurally intact. There are handrails on the stairs and guardrails on the porches. There's no entry of water into the home. The gas, electric, heating, and other utilities, water utilities are functioning properly. The electrical system is functioning properly. Smoke and carbon monoxide detectors, hot and cold water, no leaks in the plumbing, proper egress, proper functioning windows and doors with locks as needed, no rodent or insect infestation and sanitary conditions in the home. And then last but not least, that lead safety point is there at the bottom. So you have a few kind of major categories: structure of the home, water tightness, utilities functioning, functioning windows and doors, and then no sanitary issues. I would kind of, in large part, chunk the inspection requirements into those categories. The next slide, we can move on, summarizes again the lead safety requirements. So point number 15 on the 15-point checklist is the lead safety review. And as I was mentioning a couple slides back, the lead safety review differs in different homes because it is tailored based on the potential risk that is in that home. So the first category here are homes where we highly anticipate there is not going to be a lead hazard. So homes built after 1978 when lead paint was no longer being used, homes where we have an inspection that has shown that there is no lead paint in that home or no lead paint risk in that home. That's what this first category is. The type of inspection that that home will receive is only home condition because they are exempt from the lead safety review. What that means on the inspection checklist is only items 1 through 14. They are exempt from item 15. And then this last column on the far right, if one of these homes fails its first inspection and it needs a re-inspection, the re-inspection be exactly the same as that initial inspection. So the re-inspection would consist of items 1 through 14. The home remains exempt from item 15. Again, because we know from the type of home that there's very little risk of there being a lead hazard there. The second category here is homes built before 1978 when lead paint was still in use in zip codes that are not high risk, so in 75% of the city. The inspection type that these homes will receive is both home condition and a visual assessment for lead safety. On the checklist, that is items 1 through 15. The last category here, category 3, is homes built before 1978 in zip codes that have been designated by the city as high risk. And I should say that we anticipate putting out publicly in the next, I'd say 8 weeks, what the high risk zip codes will be. So that will be known, that will be public before the system is implemented. In this 25% of zip codes, what the homes will receive is a home condition inspection, a visual assessment for lead safety, and sampling of dust with laboratory testing for its lead content. In the inspection checklist, what that means is items 1 through 15, including dust sampling in item 15. Last but not least, in terms of re-inspection, the re-inspection requirements, if the home has failed its first inspection, are the same for categories 2 and 3. So homes in high-risk zips or non-high-risk zips. For any of those homes, if the home fails its inspection due to a home condition issue, so there are not working locks on the doors, when you go back to re-inspect that home, you're only going to inspect that the home has repaired its home condition issue. In contrast, if the home fails due to lead safety, if it has chipping and peeling paint, we have identified that as a potential signal of a lead hazard. Therefore, when you go back and do your re-inspection, the re-inspection will consist of a visual assessment for chipping and peeling paint as well as dust sampling. And the goal there is if we have an indication that there may be a lead paint risk, because on the first inspection you found chipping and peeling paint, we want to do a more intensive and thorough review on the reinspection. That's why we would require dust sampling on reinspection in those homes. So just to briefly summarize and bring back the key point here, as you see in category 2, 75% of zip codes in the city will just receive a visual assessment for lead safety on their first inspection. If the home fails that visual assessment, when you go back to do the reinspection, you would do both a visual and dust sampling. So it triggers a more intensive inspection requirement if the home fails its first inspection due to lead safety issues. Thanks for bearing with me. I know that was detailed, but there are a lot of different categories to the new system because it is targeted to risk. So I wanted to walk through it in rather a lot of detail for you. If we can go on to the next slide. Thank you so much, Talisha. So to go into a little bit more detail on what exactly this dust sampling would entail, dust sampling under our ordinance includes samples taken from 4 rooms. In each room, 2 samples are taken, one from the floor and one from the windowsill. And then the samples are tested by a certified laboratory. And if the lead content in the dust is over the thresholds that you can see here on the screen, so 10 micrograms per square foot for floors or 100 micrograms per square foot for windowsills, then it would be a violation of our ordinance and the home has failed that aspect of the inspection.
Like this TPS, Atlanta Public Schools thing.
Thanks. I want to be clear that the contracted inspection firms in the system will be responsible for collecting the samples, sending them to a qualified laboratory, and reporting the results back to BSEED. The RFQ seeks quotes that include the cost of collecting the samples and the cost of laboratory testing. So vendors who are bidding on this RFQ should identify a laboratory that you would work with under the system and include the cost of its services in your quote back to the city. To make that process a little bit easier on you, the city included a list of qualified laboratories in the RFQ. So there should be a list of labs that you can select from and reach out to create your full quote. Last but not least, the city does retain the discretion, despite what I just said, the city would like to retain the discretion to separate our contracts for inspection and laboratory services, which would mean that the city would identify which laboratory vendors should send their samples to. So just to reiterate, in your quote, assume that your company is both collecting the samples and sending it to a laboratory for testing. The city may, in the contracting process, change whether we bundle those contracts together or separate those contracts out. So please quote it with both the collection and the testing. But as we are in a contracting process with you, we may tell you that there's a laboratory the city wants to work with exclusively, and the city would have a separate contract with them. So just full advanced notice and transparency about what to include in your quote versus what might change later on. Next slide, please. Thank you. So this is just a process map that visually diagrams out what I was walking through in terms of how the new inspection process works. At the top of the slide in the color-coded boxes, you can see how the process works for a customer. So it starts with the owner signing up with BSEED, paying their inspection fees. Then the property owner is assigned an inspection firm and schedules their inspection. Your firm would come out. Up at the top here in the dark green, if the home passes its first inspection, of course, it is issued a certificate of compliance. In the yellow, if the home fails due to home condition issues, so again, the locks are not working on the door, the owner must complete those repairs, and then the home is re-inspected just for its home condition. And in the bottom in red, if the home fails due to lead safety, it must be re-inspected, which consists of a visual plus dust sampling. Or if the owner so chooses, the owner can also separately procure a lead clearance and submit that to the safety, and that would, submit that to the city, and that would satisfy our same lead safety requirement. At the bottom here are a few notes on vendor requirements at various points throughout this process. So just to flag a few of them, As you can see, starting at the left here, when the owner signs up with BSeed and initially kind of pays their inspection fees, that money is going to come to the city. Vendors who complete inspections will invoice the city for inspections that they perform, and the city will pay you using the fees that we have already collected from property owners. So the upshot of that for your companies is that you will invoice the city for the inspections you perform, and we will pay you, which is the completely standard process to how city contracts go. Moving on one farther to the right here on the kind of process for assigning inspection firms and scheduling inspections. Wanted to let you know that BC does expect to assign inspectors by zip code. So if your company is selected, you should get a list of zip codes where you are responsible for performing the inspection, and we would route any requests in those zip codes to you. Your inspection firms must allow for online scheduling. So property owners must be able to schedule online through Acela with your company. We want this to be a very convenient online process for property owners who are looking to get an inspection. And then inspection firms must be able to complete their inspections within 3 days of a property owner request. So that will be the time standard that we hold you to. Then last but not least, moving one farther to the right here, vendors must also upload their results back to Acela, again, online process, within 1 business day of completing their inspection, and provide correction orders. So any violations that are identified and the corresponding correction order to both the customer so that they can remediate that issue, and BSeed so that the city is aware of what the issue is. So again, 1 business day time standard in terms of reporting results back to BSeed. And that applies to all of your results with the exception of dust sampling if it is performed, because it will take longer than 1 business day to send that to the laboratory and get your results back. So moving on to the next slide. Almost done here. Just want to note a few more aspects of the project timeline and the performance metrics that the city will be looking at here. So in terms of timeline, we are hoping to have vendors selected by February. We would we're looking to have a final contract with those vendors approved and a purchase order issued by March. Throughout April, we would complete vendor onboarding, and the city would provide training on the 15-point inspection to ensure that we're implementing it in a standardized way. And then we are looking to launch this new system on May 1. Then the bottom half of the slide is all performance metrics that BSeed will be monitoring to assess vendor performance. Of course, the number of inspections that are completed, the compliance and non-compliance rate across our different vendors. So again, what we're looking for there is standardization and making sure that one vendor isn't being dramatically stricter than another vendor in terms of how they're implementing that 15-point checklist. That's our goal at looking at compliance rates. Timeliness of scheduling and availability. I flagged a few time standards that you would be held to, and then any customer complaints that are received, again, to make sure that there's a smooth, respectful customer process here. The minimum qualifications listed here are the minimum qualifications that vendors must meet in order to bid on this RFQ. So if your firm or you as an inspector do not meet these, you are unfortunately not eligible to submit a bid to us. So bidders must have a minimum of 5 years of experience providing inspection services for government property maintenance code inspections, residential inspections, and/or rental housing inspections. So 5 years experience providing inspection services can be across a number of different types of inspections. Any staff performing inspections under these contracts must have the certifications in the areas that you see listed. So all staff must have 1 or more of the following home condition inspection certificates. And you see those 3 categories listed here: the Uniform Physical Condition Standards, ICC Property Maintenance and Housing Inspector, and ASHI or NAHI Home Inspector. So any of those 3 categories work well, but you must have 1 of those 3 categories. And in addition, you must have 1 or more of the following lead safety certifications, either a risk assessor and/or a dust sampling technician. So everyone performing services under this RFP as an inspector needs to have at least 1 of home condition certification and at least 1 lead safety certification. I think the last point to flag on this slide is that if your inspectors would need to obtain additional certifications in order to provide services under this RFP, you can include the costs of that training in your cost proposal. So a part of your proposal can be gaining the necessary certifications to provide these services, and you're welcome to quote us the cost of doing so. Last but not least, I think this is my last slide, thankfully, your submission back to the city, if you do intend to submit a bid here, should include evidence of the necessary experience and qualifications, a technical approach to conducting inspections, so a description of your technical approach to how you would do these inspections, a cost proposal, and there is a cost proposal template, so please use the template, and then a proposed project timeline and your first date of availability when you would be able to begin performing inspections. The cost proposal, as I mentioned, there's a template that we're asking you to use. Your quote should include the cost of your initial inspection and one re-inspection. You are able to charge an additional fee if there is a second re-inspection and any additional re-inspections beyond the second, but your base price should include the first initial inspection and one re-inspection should be included in the base cost. You should also separate out the cost of the inspection from the cost of laboratory analysis for dust sampling, as we kind of talked through the way that the city might structure that contract. And then please do include any and all fees and charges needed to perform the services. So what you put in your cost template is what you will be held to. You won't be able to add additional fees or charges on top of that. Latrice, would you like to go through these last couple slides, which are a bit more about the Oracle process?
Sure. You can register as a city supplier at www.detroitmi.gov/supplier and submit an application through the city's system at the same address, which is detroitmi.gov/supplier. And proposals can, your responses can only be submitted electronically through the Oracle portal. Applicants can review the request for proposal, the request for a quote is this bid. And let me see. You can view actually all current opportunities with the city of Detroit via our website. And the RFQ provides greater detail on programs, city priorities, and application materials. If you need help or assistance with navigating Oracle, on the screen are the availability dates to register, and then you also have the options of different days and times. And we also have general office hours listed as well. And another point, the recording of this pre-bid conference will be posted to the Oracle message board for anybody who was late and did not get earlier information. There will be a link to this recording provided in the message board later on today. And if anyone has any questions at this time, please raise your hand. Well, use the hand raise feature and we'll start answering questions. And the first is from DC2 Contracting. You're muted, so if you can unmute.
Yes,
Thank you.
can you hear me now? Hi.
Yep.
Okay, I had a question about the invoice process. I know you mentioned that when you were going over the invoicing, you said that BSeed would bill the homeowner, and once the homeowner was paid, that BSeed would then that we would invoice BSeed, and BSeed would submit us the payment. So does that mean that we have to wait for the homeowner to pay VC before we get paid, or how does that go? Or is there a time frame?
That's a great question. No, inspection firms will not need to wait on the homeowner to pay BSeed in order to get paid by the city. All that you will need to do is invoice the city, and the city will pay you for the inspections that you have performed. The context around how the homeowners pay was provided purely for context, so you understand how the system works. But the only component you need to worry about is invoicing the city, and the city will pay the invoice.
Awesome. And I have one second part. Do we have to have the City of Detroit clearance approved to be a sub on this project?
Yes, you do.
The only reason okay, because I have put in for the city clearance on several occasions through the email, and it's in my oldest one being 7 months ago, and I still haven't received any response from the city regarding that. So I'll just have to go down there personally. I submitted it twice electronically, but
Yep.
thank you.
Concerning treasury clearances, if you all don't know, that information is received to the city and then is submitted to the state of Michigan for verification. And the city has to wait for the state of Michigan to provide us with the information stating that there are no outstanding income taxes owed to the city before the clearance can be approved. And the state has a backlog of 8 to 10 weeks at the current time presently. So if you have not applied for your treasury clearance, please apply as soon as possible today, if possible, so that we'll be able to get that information over to the state and they can review it and get it back to us, hopefully before the contract is awarded.
Okay, now is there any way that we can find out if ours have been submitted to the state before we resubmit it again, or should I just go ahead and just resubmit it in person?
There's no way for on your end to find out if your application has been submitted to the state yet. You could try calling the Treasury Department or emailing them. If not, you can inquire in person in their office.
Awesome, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Next is Matt Farming from Farmington Family Construction.
Hi, thank you. My question was approximately how many awards are expected for this bid?
That's a great question. We're certainly expecting multiple awards. I wouldn't want to speculate on the number because we do anticipate that there are tens of thousands of homes that need to make it through the inspection process. So what we're really going to be looking at is enough awards and enough firms to be able to meet what we expect to be the demand. So one aspect of your application that I didn't mention actually is that we do ask each firm to submit the maximum number of inspections that they would be able to handle. And we'll be looking to add up all of the awarded firms to make sure that we're meeting our expected customer demand on an annual basis.
Okay, thank you.
The next question from Darrell Grant.
Hi, I just wanted to know if HQS for HQS certification and a risk assessment certification would suffice, or if the other certifications are still necessary.
Arthur Russian, are you still with us?
Yes, just the certifications that we listed in the minimum qualifications will be considered.
Okay. Thank you.
Next question from Clarence Buck. Clarence, if you can unmute yourself. Okay. We'll move on to building more design and construction.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, my question is, even though we do have the experience and we're going through the certification to meet at least one of the first certification requirements as well as the lead inspector. I guess the cost associated to make that up, we can include that in our bid, correct?
Yes, sir. There's a line in the cost template where you can include that.
Okay, and I think my next question is during the process of onboarding, I guess, will you allow for contractors, if they are selected, to, I guess, go through their licensure process? I know in my case, I am a certified risk assessor, but I want to make sure my license is still active. So I just want to kind of go through that piece to make sure it's active, but also continue with the bid process.
Absolutely. What we would be looking for is making sure that all of your certifications are in place before you begin providing inspections under these contracts. So as I mentioned,
Gotcha.
we're looking to launch this new system May 1. Yep.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, Jermaine Holloway.
How you doing, everyone? I'd like to know if a friend of mine, Stephen Huntington, have his builder's license and an inspection license for houses. Is it possible for him to work with me?
Only inspectors that maintain the minimum qualifications will be able to perform those inspections.
Okay, Randy Keithley.
Yes. The homes in this program, have they all had previous lead inspections performed on them? And if not, is it no longer a requirement for the city of Detroit to have the landlords have lead inspections performed before anything else is done?
If a lead inspection has been performed on that property, then you can find that information out from the property owner. They are supposed to maintain those inspection records. So they will let you know whether or not they have been exempt from any further lead testing.
Okay.
And to build on what Arthur is saying, and just to be triply clear here, the new rental ordinance in the city of Detroit no longer requires a LIRA for rental properties. So going forward, no rental property is required to get a LIRA anymore. If a property was in compliance with our prior rental ordinance and had a LIRA, as Arthur is saying, the homeowner should know that, or the property owner, excuse me, and can notify you.
Okay.
Kendria Batts.
Hi, yes, just two quick questions. One is related to the invoice and payment processing. Is the city like committed to a certain timeline when it comes to processing payments? And the second question is related to the certifications. If a vendor does not have the current certifications and we include it in the cost, is there a certain time frame that you're looking for those certifications to be gained before the project begins?
Latrice, could you chime in on the payment point?
Yes, the terms of payment is 30 days. So 30, it'll be up to 30 days after your invoice is submitted that payment would be processed.
Okay, thank you.
And let us respond to the group in writing on by when exactly each inspection firm would be required to have the minimum certifications. As I mentioned, you can submit in your bid a proposal to get new certifications. You would need them before inspections begin, but we'll follow up on an exact timeline so everyone has the same standard and expectation.
Thank you.
And the answer to that question will be posted in the Oracle message board. Scott Fisher.
Yes. Do you guys have a goal on how many inspections you'd like to have done per month by some of these individual contractors?
At risk of repeating myself, I think I would just refer back to my prior answer. We're looking to meet customer demand. We expect, well over 10,000 inspections per year. Arthur, would you change or add to that estimate?
No, I agree. We may even have a larger request because some areas may not require the dust wipe sample. So we may have a large request.
Okay. And then just quickly on the payment of certifications, if we already have those certifications, is there a reimbursement program or can that be submitted in the proposal for the certifications?
I would say costs required to maintain your certification, so recertification, if you already have it, is valid. I don't think the city would consider reimbursing an action that you've already chosen to take before we issued this RFQ.
Okay.
Chris Marable?
Hi, my question is regarding the certification. Is InterNACHI Home Inspector acceptable? I notice it says NAHI, and then I'm looking at an article that just says NAHI becomes a division of InterNACHI.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Chris, go ahead. Chris Marable, do you still have a question?
Nope, I'm all set. I just asked it about the InterNACHI.
You shut the door. Go back. Come in.
Jermaine Holloway?
Yes, thank you. I want to know if I'm having trouble navigating a computer and things of that nature, is it possible I can call someone to help me write my contracts? Because I've been a vendor for a minute now, and I really haven't really bidded on anything because it's kind of challenging for me to navigate the computer.
Okay.
So I'd like to know if I can get help sometime.
Yep, you can go to the city's website at detroitmi.gov/supplier. And there you're able to either set up an appointment in person or online with our e-procurement team to help walk you through the Oracle process.
What's that email address again, please?
It's detroitmi.gov/supplier.
Oh yeah, I get on there. You go into which portal do I go to? It's on the main page. Okay.
I think it is on the main page. It should have something in regards to, let's see, suppliers. Let me look really quickly and then I'll put the steps in the chat.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Did anyone else have any other questions? Because there were quite a few questions submitted via the Oracle message board. So if you submitted questions through the Oracle message board, right now would be a very good time to answer them, to ask them and get answers in real time. Randy Keithley?
If a home has not had a lead inspection done previously, are we then to assume that all chipping and deteriorating paint is lead containing?
Exactly, yes. All paint is assumed to be lead containing in a pre-1978 home. Any chipping, peeling, damaged, or deteriorated paint is considered to be a violation under our inspection. And similarly, any bare soil within the drip line is considered to be a violation.
Just bare soil? Like, does it have to contain paint chips or anything? Just bare?
It just bare within the drip line.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Latrice, I'm going to ask that all of the participants that have asked questions already, if you could lower your hands so that way we could, I guess, better manage those that have not asked their question. Thank you.
Does anyone else have any other questions?
Looks like we still have two hands raised, Scott Fisher and then Clarence Buck. Scott, I see
Scott,
your
you're
lips
on mute.
moving, but I can't hear you. You got to unmute.
Sorry about that. I don't know how to take the hand off there to stop the, you answered my questions earlier. So I don't know if it's still there.
And
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Clarence Buck, you're welcome to unmute and ask if you have a new question.
Yes, thank you. How will the landlords or owners will be calling or applying for their inspection through BC? How will that work then be distributed to the individual vendors? Is it just kind of a round robin sort of a situation? How is that planned to work?
The city expects to assign vendors by zip code. So there should be certain zip codes that each inspection firm would be responsible for serving. So when a property owner from that zip code signs up, they would be able to schedule online with your company through the city's Acela platform, and then that online scheduling request would go to your firm. So I want to emphasize that our goal is to allow any property owner to schedule online if they want to.
Thank you.
And Randy Keithley, if you have another one, go ahead. Or Tikendria.
Yes, I muted myself, sorry.
Yes.
Oh,
I do have one more question. I did see in the RFQ that City of Detroit's working with MDHHS and making sure that any of the for the visual inspection and dust sampling is, I'm assuming, in compliance with all state regulations. I know we've been told that they will issue citations to inspector or assessors performing work if the minimum state standards are not performed when assessing the hazards. Is there something in writing that they will produce to make sure that any risk assessors are not being cited for not doing something properly? Because that was the one thing that I'm with ETC, and that's like the one thing that we just not understand was it seems like this is kind of a pseudo risk assessment, but not a full on risk assessment. And I know the state doesn't like when you just do partials of something. So I just wanted to make sure that we're not going to be, if we do win this contract or part of this contract, that we're not going to be on the hook for any sort of violations that can come our way.
Totally fair question. So I want to be clear, the way that the city sees this is that this is a municipal property code inspection. This is not a lead inspection, risk assessment, not a clearance exam, none of those state regulated Lead Abatement Act examinations. It's a municipal code inspection, and we're similarly not definitively looking to identify lead paint. So as you and I discussed in a couple other questions, we're making a presumption about what paint is lead and then identifying presumptive violations. Those violations are meant to capture circumstances that may indicate that a lead hazard exists in the home. So what we're looking for is a risk flag that the property owner may want to go do one of those state regulated, more intensive inspections outside of the municipal rental inspection system. So that's a little bit of context, but I know ETC is quite familiar with the system, so I thought I would share that. To your actual question, yes, the city will produce something in writing reflecting our conversations with MDHHS, making clear to certified risk assessors who are participating in our system that they will not be responsible for violations based on their work under our system. So that conversation is ongoing.
Okay, thank you.
And to Kendria.
Yes, I just wanted to ask a clarifying question relative to the qualifications, those minimum qualifications that you spoke of relative to like the firm and then the individual inspector. So we as a firm, if we have the actual 5 years, for instance, of experience or more, and then we have new team members who may not have 5 years, but they have the certifications, is that appropriate?
Yes, that's a great question, and that is appropriate.
Okay, thank you.
If we don't have any other questions, I would just close by saying I'm really heartened and enthusiastic to see how many people signed on to this pre-bid conference. As you've heard us reference a couple of times, this is going to be a really big effort reaching tens of thousands of properties across the city. So there's quite a bit of opportunity. There's quite a bit of work to go around. We would really encourage a broad swath of inspection firms to submit proposals to this bid. And not only is it a great opportunity, but it's also a real opportunity to improve housing quality in Detroit, which we feel strongly about as a city.
Yes, sir. I have one question. How long do it take to get paid once you submit the invoice?
It'll be up to 30 days.
Up to 30 days?
Yes,
All right, thank you.
you're welcome. And then I have posted in the chat where to go for help navigating Oracle. After you go to detroitmi.gov/supplier, you're going to go down to supplier resources for navigating Oracle. Then you're going to scroll down to have additional supplier portal questions. And then you can click the selection from there if you want to join office hours, or if you want to come in person, if you have a question that you want to email, so forth, so on and so forth. Are there any more questions?
Latrice, it looks like you're freezing, so.
I was gonna say, is she freezing on your end? Okay.
Yes.
I think we're at the end and we can conclude if there's no additional questions.
All right, thank everybody for attending.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.